Ladies and gentlemen, I am Epion, and you are listening to the Ironbark Podcast. This is an emergency podcast. I normally do one podcast a week, but the LA fires, they're bad. It's an environmental issue, it's a nature issue. It's in my wheelhouse. I gotta talk about it. It's impacting hundreds of thousands of people. It's insane. They're evacuating 130,000 right now, probably more to come. What started off as a forest fire quickly spread into the city, to the urban parts of LA, and now many people have lost their homes and their businesses. A lot of buildings are gone. Sunset Boulevard gone. It's a disaster. It's horrible. I'm going to be fairly serious in this podcast. I may pepper in some humor, but I don't want anyone to feel like disparaged or insulted when I do bits of humor. It is a bit of dark humor to help cope with like the travesty of it all. Like it's just how some people cope with things. Sometimes they need a little bit of laugh. It's a bit of dark humor. If you're not into dark humor, if you're sensitive, don't listen to this episode. But I'm not guaranteeing that I will have jokes, but I am just going to go off the rip here and just sort of talk how I feel, say what I want. So I don't even know if I'm going to say a joke or if one will come to my head. I'm just preparing you. I'm just fucking preparing you. I may say some dumb shit. It might be offensive, but it might be okay to laugh to kind of sort of feel better about the irony, the hypocrisy, or whatever it is that's got you upset about these fires. Now, obviously, it's a big, huge political football in a sense, and I hate that. I absolutely fucking hate when things that are like massive incidents like this that become political talking points. But they are inevitably political. I am not going to focus on the political parts of this. What I want to focus on is suggestions, how to prevent this in the future, how to prevent this from happening in other places. Just a few months ago, we had this happen in Canada, so up north, and this happened in Jasper National Park. They lost 80,000 acres of land to forest fire. Pristine, beautiful forest gone. Some parts of the town gone. Now it's LA. It, at first when I was watching it, it was like they were up to like 20,000 acres, and I was like, well, that ain't shit compared to Jasper. Now I'm pretty sure they're at the 200,000 acres mark, and also a lot of it is urban area as opposed to forested areas. So here we go with the suggestions. We're going to focus on what I don't want to say what should have been done, but we're going to focus on how they have to build it back, how they things they should think about if they build back, when they build back. Maybe some other places that may be at risk as well. So we got to talk about forest management. You got to clear out debris. You got to clear out old debris. A lot of people have the mindset that just let nature be, it will sort itself out, it will find its way, it'll manage itself. Okay. Normally, most extents, that is the case. The issue here is that we as humans have impacted the natural ecosystem and environment to such a degree, especially in heavy populated areas like LA, to such an extent that we've impacted the ecosystem that it can't balance itself, and we have to sort of actively take measures to balance it. So when I say clearing out the debris, what normally clears out debris and stuff like that? Well, you have like animals. You have a lot of like these like herbivore animals, these quadrupeds. Most places have like a lot of them, especially heavily dense forested areas. They have a lot. They have a lot of deer. They have a lot of elk. They have moose. They have. I know these aren't necessarily native to LA, but at one point some of these were. Like the flag in California has a grizzly bear. There's no grizzly bears in California. What else is California missing that it used to have? There's plenty of, these deer animals that aren't there anymore. That used to be. The populations are definitely much smaller. They're reduced because they're almost like a nuisance species. They come into conflict with humans because there's so many humans. And I don't disagree with that position. I don't want to see animals coming into conflict with humans either. Deer jump onto the roads. They come into collisions with car, causes property damage, causes accidents. People get injured. People die. That's a bad thing. I'm a people first person, despite being like a nature guy. How do we circumvent those issues? How do we reconcile that issue? There has to be some sort of focus on harmony with nature and wildlife. Or you have to have harmony, or because you can't have some of it, or you know what I mean. Like it just doesn't work that way. What people like to do now is they like to manage wildlife down to a small number that's big enough that the population can self-sustain itself, but that the population doesn't grow, it doesn't expand into different territories, it doesn't form new subspecies, it just maintains that species' existence, and that's all it focuses on. Now, when you keep the numbers low like that, it doesn't let them go through the bush, gather up, eat the leaves, eat the grasses, before they die and turn brown. This is like a lot of things people are saying. It's like, oh, they don't eat dead grass. They don't eat, sometimes they do these stuff like hay and stuff. But the point people are missing is that a lot of this foliage on these bushes and stuff would get eaten, so it wouldn't, turn brown and fall off in the wintertime and fall and then turn into kindle. That's a part of it. Another part of it is just forest management. So you have to compensate for the loss of animals. So you got to go in there, you got to wheel some of that stuff out. Very arduous, a lot of land to cover, very difficult. You do controlled burns to kind of help assist that, right? And then you put it out. Slow and controlled, make sure you take care of business. They don't do that. That's another thing they need to do. You just have to sort of so going back to building the infrastructure with living in harmony with the animals, you have to have fences along the highways. You have to have large shoulders off the side of the highways. What this effectively does is it takes a highway, which is large by itself if it's, 4 lanes or bigger, and then you expand the shoulders into the tree lines. So then you have this will act as a fire break. So not only are you sort of having good space management, because it's like, okay, well, we need this road, but we also don't need this road to be beside a forest. And if it is, maybe we should clear it a little bit. And I support replacing all the trees that are cut down with new trees, like maybe plant 10 trees for every one that's cut down. Because obviously if you go 1 for 1, not every tree you plant is going to survive. So you need to up the odds. So you basically form this massive fire break. You turn highways into fire breaks. You turn, if they have like gas lines, if there's gas industry there, you can do it to the gas lines that go through the forest. You can do it with like the hydro lines that go through forests. You can do it with rivers, if there's like natural river areas that are sort of like not necessarily supposed to be like pristine like nature area, like it's more of like an urbanized area. You can do that with the river areas. There's tons of stuff you can do to make fire breaks appear a part of the landscape, or like a part of like the human urbanized areas. Where you really have to focus on fire breaks is on like the perimeter boundaries of the town, because you want to have, so in case a forest fire breaks out in like the middle of nowhere and it's like, oh fuck, we're losing forests. That sucks. That's bad. It's bad for the habitat. It's bad for the environment. But what's worse is when it comes into conflict with humans and it rolls up onto the human property. It kills people. It causes untold amounts of property damage. So what you want to do is you basically want to have a nice good distance. It's like a fire break where there isn't forest close enough so that when the forest fire rolls up to its border, the heat dome effect that the fire creates doesn't dry up all the areas surrounding the houses and stuff like that. It's like far enough away. And it's far enough away that the embers that are burning off the forest fire don't float on the drafts caused by the hot air into the homes and stuff like that and catch fire. That's how big the breaks kind of need to be. You can also do this with rail lines. You could put fire breaks along railroad lines. You can invest in railroad infrastructure. In Canada, they have this train that's built specifically for forest fires. And I think it's mostly for like the rail companies to preserve their assets. It's not really so much to like whatever else. It might be more of a selfish endeavor, but it's a mutually benefiting idea. It's basically like a train just full of water tanks and water cannons, and they just hose down, like they'll send the train into that area and they'll just like hose it down as much as they can, and just try to like just keep it moist and then send it back. And you could potentially, if it's like a double rail system, potentially you could have it on a rotationary basis and keep it going. Now, I know water is a problem in LA, in California. It is beside the ocean. So there's ways of building infrastructure potentially to sort of have that work out. It's a lot of money. I know it's something to consider. It's something to put in the minds of people if it's feasible. Maybe someone can come up with a better plan. There's tons of stuff, but basically around the perimeter of the cities, there's that city in Japan that built in a bunch of hydro cannons into like little shrines to protect the city from forest fires, or the town from forest fires if it ever goes off. They could do that. They could do that as well, although that does seem kind of like, it seems a little bit over the top, but hey, Japan's done it. So you want to have these big fire breaks around the perimeter of the city. You want to protect it from the heat dome effect. You want to protect it from the embers flying effect. And then that way, there's a nice, good barrier. And there's a nice, big place where like firefighters could set up a perimeter and sort of pay special attention to. It's where water bombers could go to pay special attention to just sort of keep that area nice and wet. And that's all that happens. That's all you really need to do. That's the best you can do. I don't know. Invest in local farmers who have goat herds. Get them to take their goats out hiking, once a month to go eat up some of the debris out in the forest and stuff like that. And I know there's ecological concerns with that kind of stuff as well. You have to have the goats tested so their droppings don't pass on things to like native wildlife, et cetera, et cetera. But there's ways of going about it. There's ways of doing it. And that's a super, natural way of doing things. I don't know. Everyone's going off on the politics about it, saying they should have done this, they should have done that. I'm not going to get into that. Like, I'm not getting into it because I'm a liberal. I'm not going to say I'm liberal or conservative. You guys probably pick up on what I am most of the time, but it just feels weird to like capitalize politically on something. And you guys know I'm like an Elon supporter, so that kind of tells on me right there. But it's like, it feels weird to capitalize on like human suffering in a way, because to some extent people ought to know. Like they ought to know, right? Like you don't have to go and rub it in their face. Like, hey, you voted for this, you idiot. Like that, they don't want to hear that. No one wants to fucking hear that when they've lost everything, when people that they've died have lost. Like you don't need to add, insult to injury. You don't need to add insult to injury. This is a time for compassion. This is Americans were very, very critical of Hawaii when it was burning. They were very critical of the train disaster derailment with the chemical spills and the concerns with that. There was the hurricane and the flooding, the surge flooding. Everyone was critical about that. We know what we want. We know how we want people to respond, and we want to support each other, regardless of your political views, regardless of how your state voted. You support your people, and they're all Americans. And that's what's important. You come together. Right now, I don't want to see conservatives being like, good riddance to bad rubbish. I don't want to see that. I want to see, I fucking got you. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your ideologies are. I got you. That's what I want to see. I want to see people be the best versions of themselves and go fucking help their fellow Americans. Like, that's what they gotta do. That's what everyone, I feel like, has to do. And don't revel in it like it's a good thing. It's not a fucking good thing. It's a fucking horrible thing. If you saw people online laughing at people in Hawaii, if you saw people online laughing at people during the hurricanes, and you thought those people were despicable, and then you go ahead and turn around and do it to California because they vote differently or whatever, shame on you. You're becoming what you despise. You're becoming the type of person you were critical of. You're being hypocritical, and you need to smarten up. And you need to realize, like, you can leave politics sex and religion at the door, but you come together when it fucking matters. All right? You can leave all that other shit at the door. And I know a lot of people say, oh, that stuff does matter. And it does. But you know what else matters? People's lives. People's lives. People's lives matter. I don't know how you want to categorize things on what matters most, but food for thought. Anyway, that's kind of the message I want to send. Everybody evacuating, please get out safely. If you're nowhere near it, maybe still think about it. Make plans. Make plans. Because when evacuation happens, it's a lot of fucking people and not a lot of fucking time. If you have horses, if you have cattle, you may want to temporarily, starting now, if you got a friend that's farther away that can keep them on a ranch somewhere for you, you might want to haul them. I know it's going to be expensive, this and that, but if it's like your hobby farm and you love them, you got to do it. If they're your livestock and you depend on them for survival and maybe they're insured, I don't know, whatever. Nonetheless, it may be more cost effective to transport them. And because I'm, an animal guy, I don't think you should just look at it as a cost effective thing. I'm just trying to sell it to the people that aren't. You should just move the animals anyway. Because it's the fucking right thing to do. Contact a friend. Maybe there's other people out there. There's other resources you can move these animals to temporarily. To do it out of state, there are regulations and stuff like that you have to abide by. Maybe you can appeal to other people in, the political offices to make exemptions for emergency reasons. I don't really know, folks, but you got to start figuring it out, and you got to figure it out now because forest fires can move fucking fast. They can go out fast too. Ideal situations, but there can be a really fucking bad run-in with the perfect storms when it comes to these things, and they can just keep fucking going. Anyway, folks, I don't know. The message I want everyone to take away from tonight is no insult to injury. No matter how fucking good it will satisfy that, that, I don't know, told you so, mentality you have deep down in you that makes you feel like you're winning. I don't want to, and I want to see people, helping their fellow Americans. I want to see donations. I want to see, effort to help. I want to see thoughts and prayers. I want to see, you know what I mean? You come together. Even if people didn't come together for you in your time of need, you remember how that felt. And you remember that was wrong. You be better than how other people were. And you show them why you be good. You be a good person no matter what. Your morals, your ethics, your attitude should be above everything else. You aren't just what you say you are what you do. Who you think you are could simply be a delusion. I'll put it to you this way. Who you think you are is one thing, but how everyone else perceives you is another. Now, you take the collective sum of everyone's perspective or opinion of you, and you compare that collective sum to your perspective or opinion of yourself, and the difference between those two things, if there's a gap, that difference in that gap there, that empty spot, that is delusion. So maybe think about the type of person you want to be, the type of person you tell yourself you are. Maybe now's the time, you show that to the world and you support people that need your help. Anyway, folks, and I know I can already hear the backlash. Oh, it's all rich people. It's all actors. It's all celebrities. It's not going to be the case for everyone. There will be other people. But hopefully some of these celebrities, I don't know, maybe they decide to help their fellow man out as well. Many of them do. They just don't talk about it. They just don't share it. So let's not be too critical of them as well. It's a good time for people to come together. It's kind of a silver lining in a tragedy. Don't let it be more divisive than it has to be. You don't need it to be. And I know both sides want to. It's a fucked up thing. Like, the conservative side wants to say poor forest management policies, poor budget cuts, and departments that matter. And then the left side wants to just blame it on climate change or something like that. And then it's kind of like it's like it gives them both like political talking points. If my house burnt down, I don't give a fuck about. Well, maybe I give a fuck about both those things now that I think about it. But at the end of the day, I don't think I can change either of those fucking things, really. And I don't think it's going to really change the outcome or my quality of life in the short term for the moment. So I don't really want to hear about it. I just want to feel safe again. You know what I mean? I want to know things are going to be okay. I want to know that like the insurance companies aren't going to bail on me. That's the kind of stuff I want to know. So if you have answers to that sort of stuff, or you can help come to resolutions on that sort of stuff, that hearing that sort of stuff, getting that sort of information out to your fellow Americans might be more beneficial and helpful and be a net positive for everyone. And it won't be political. Just food for thought. Anyway, folks, I've said my bit. I did this bit when Jasper was on fire. I'm doing this bit now. I don't know. I say things. I don't know if anyone listens because I make recommendations. I say this. I say these things. Everyone says, and it's not just me because I'm like a little person. I'm a nobody. But other people, they see it. They go, that's a good idea. Other people, I'm taking ideas from other people. I'm amalgamating them. All that sort of stuff. Dude, they never really materialize. Like I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell people. Like the environment, like the forest fire stuff always takes a back burn. It's a weird fucking thing. It's a weird fucking thing. And I don't even really like talking about this stuff because it's contentious. It's contentious. I hate being both political person. But, okay, so you have left-wing politics that are typically, most of the time, they're very environmental-based, they're very green-based, right? So you think that would mean better care for the environment, right? They're like green energy, electric cars, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that stuff I like. Now, when it comes to forest management, their policies don't really seem to reflect that. And I'm not saying that right wing does, because I don't even think it does with them either. They just like criticize it. So it's like, why is no one taking care of the fucking forest problem? Like everyone's saying. And then when the forest fires happen, the left says it's climate change, and then the right says it's poor forest management. It's a weird fucking thing. It's a weird thing. Because then it's like one side can capitalize on tragedy. It's a weird thing. The climate change being like a political football is a weird thing. And the reason it's a weird thing is because anytime there's a natural disaster, it's like a quarter in the bank of pushing that narrative in a way. Now, does it get to a point now where it's like, this is diabolical, so I'm not saying this is what's happening, all right? But if you were to play it out up to scale, what if you didn't want to manage natural disasters properly to better hit home the message of climate change, or to sort of continue to push that idea. That is a very that's a very loaded thing to say. And the reason that's a loaded thing to say is because people on the left will go, how dare you? Like, you think we're evil, that we want bad things to happen so that we can continue to profit off whatever green projects? They have a point. Like, you're saying a lot to them when you say that, right? You're saying a lot to someone. And I don't think those people are like that. I think they're well intended and they're good people. So that's a loaded thing to say. But it's also like, how does a saying go? It's like, what's that saying? It's like, no tragedy, what's that saying? No tragedy goes unpunished. What is it? No strategy goes unpunished. Whatever it is, I don't know. No good disaster goes uncapitalized, or some shit like that. You know what? You probably know the expression, and you're probably like dying that I'm not saying it or whatever. But anyway, I digress. Perhaps sometimes it's like the road to hell is paved with bricks of good intentions. And although every little brick we put in is a really well intended with a good outcome, it doesn't necessarily lead to somewhere good in the long run. You got to see the forest from the trees in a way. So there needs to be some sort of coming together on this topic. There needs to be some sort of coming together on this issue. We need to manage our forests better. And I'm not against like these green initiatives. Don't get me wrong. I love like electric cars. I think Tesla's like the shit. But we do need to reconcile some things here. There has to be a happy medium. Anyway, folks, that's it. Stay safe out there. Don't let the politics tear you apart. Come together. Don't get saucy over what people decide to blame this on, whether it's climate change or forest management. It's irrelevant. What's done is done. Let's address what needs to be addressed now, which isn't necessarily forest fire management since it's all burnt up. I mean, there's other places you got to look out for, but right now, it's helping those in need. That's what's happening now. That's what's relevant now. That's not political. That's just being human. Help your fellow man, woman. Good night, folks.